Hello and welcome to the very first Dents Locker Room Chat. My name is Daniel Wilshire and very, very excited for this conversation here today, and there's a number of reasons I think personally for that. I run a business specifically in the mental health space, and a lot of my work has been focused over the past year and a half around the conversation around mental health within schools and businesses to raise the awareness of that and to increase that conversation around what is typically known and has been a taboo subject. And I think we can all say after the pandemic, there's been an amazing increase of public awareness around mental health. That conversation now has been plastered across social media. We're now finally seeing people feel more comfortable talking about these things. However, one interesting aspect and one thing that I think we can all agree on here today is that there's an aspect of mental health or something that's kind of interlinked with it that isn't spoken about still within society, and that is hair loss, especially within males. So that's the reason why today I'm very, very excited for this conversation, because we're going to be breaking down some of the stigma around the topic of hair loss in males and having an open discussion around what hair means to us as guys. So I think that's a good place to start. And if I was to ask myself the question of what hair actually means to me, like what does my own hair mean to me, I think the way to start that would be with it being a form of identity. Like I view my hair as it makes my identity, it's part of who I am. It's kind of my style, it's the way that I greet people, it's that introduction before I say hello. It's the way that I dress and all those sorts of things as well. It's my introduction before I actually say hello to people. So it is really an important factor for me in the realm of all that. And if we head over to Jamie, I think if we go around one by one and just answer that question, if I was to say to you, what does hair actually mean to you, Jamie?
I think for me, one of the things is probably confidence. So going through hair loss, I think you slowly lose your confidence, and as more and more of your hair gets lost, you lose even more of it, and you tend to try and hide it to cover it up and make yourself feel a bit more confident. And one of them stigmas is friends, when friends notice that you're starting to lose hair and they make little jokes. I think sometimes it chips away at that confidence that you had, and definitely my personal journey is having a hair transplant and going on medication and stuff to help my hair. I would say that I've noticed my confidence has grown, so it's only looking back that I realised that I did lose confidence at the time. I don't think you notice that, but yeah, definitely looking back, it's a big confidence thing.
Yeah, definitely. So the confidence, obviously a big one for yourself. What about you? What would you say?
Just to shadow Jamie, mine would be the same. It's mostly confidence. But for myself, I've always seen my hair as basically my crown. So like your hair, you're basically a king. So it tops off your outfit and it's what you wear day to day. So obviously if you have a bad hair day, you're going to feel like rubbish. A good hair day, you're going to feel amazing.
And we'll come on to that in a moment as well. And I think what you mentioned there about those good hair days and the bad hair days is a really important topic, because that can literally set your mood for the rest of the day, because it's one of the first things you see in the morning. So really important. What would you say hair means to you, Jamie, as well?
Yeah, for me, it's a case of hair is a way that a man expresses himself. You know, women, they've got makeup. You know, some men wear makeup, but the majority of men, it's their facial hair and their hair. The hardest thing about suffering hair loss is you lose the choice of how to express yourself. Like Jamie was saying, you get limited to what you can do, the hairstyles that you can have, and it's horrible. No one wants that choice taken away from them, and that's the hardest thing to deal with.
Yeah, so it's kind of that choice, and obviously the actual kind of the way that hair looks, the styling around it, and again, that sense of identity is there. So the confidence, the sense of identity, the lack of control, obviously, is one of the biggest impacts as well. For you, what does your hair mean for you?
I kind of see it as like a barometer. So if it kind of sets expectation for the day. So let's just say if I've not styled it, or it's not, I know I need a haircut, I'm very self-conscious about it, and as I go out and about the world, my hair is kind of like, for me, the indicator of how this next conversation is going to go, or the next kind of interaction. And I'm like, if my hair is floppy or flat, I feel like actually a bit of a dweeb or that kind of vibe. But then actually, when I have it on a really cracking day, when it's up and I'm feeling good, then all of a sudden I can just sort of conquer the world, basically. So it's kind of, it indicates your own mood, but I wonder actually how much it influences that mood in the first place. So it's kind of like a barometer.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think what you mentioned there about, the barbers, and when you go for a haircut, that was something that I know in my kind of own journey and just actually getting a haircut. Anyway, when I go to the barbers, I used to refer to it as almost from a form of therapy, in the sense that, one, I get to chat to my actual barber, but two, I feel amazing when I actually leave because I got that fresh fade and my hair's looking a lot better. So it shows kind of the impact, especially for males, the impact a haircut actually has, and from that perspective. And you, Izzy, what would you say hair means?
Just to echo these guys, really. I think confidence is the key word there. And only when you go through hair loss, and like you said, choice as well, you think, oh God, I've lost the choice of what I can do with my hair. That's when it really hits home. And then when you get it back, the confidence just comes back and you think to yourself, wow, it's such a big part of me, your day to day, what you want to do with your day. Honestly, like, I only really understood it once I got my hair back. Yeah. And I thought, yeah, it really is a big part of me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I won't leave the house without my hair styled. If I'm having a lazy day, I'll wear the cap. That sort of thing. I will not go out with bedhead or anything like that. So, and barbers as well. I'm thinking to myself, is this no more barbers for me? Am I going to have to stay at home and just take it all off? So yeah, no, confidence is the key word there for me. Yeah,
and definitely. So obviously the confidence, kind of the identity, even the little things like going for a haircut. But I think also what you touched on was the lack of control, or the loss of control, that came up a few times. And I think it is a scenario and a situation that can feel quite out of control. And it's about how do we actually regain control in a scenario that feels out of control. And we'll touch on a few of those things today. But one thing that also came up that you mentioned was that good hair day and the bad hair day. Talk to me a little about that. What does like a good hair day mean for you, or what does a bad hair day mean for you, and how does that kind of impact the rest of your day?
A good hair day, obviously, you're going to feel on top of the world. Obviously, it tops off your outfit, doesn't it? You start off with your nice clothes, and if your hair's nice, you're going to feel amazing. If your hair has just gone weak, limp, you're not happy with your hair, you're not happy with your hairline, no matter how you style it, it's just going to annoy you. It's just going to wind you up, and you're just going to feel absolutely horrendous about yourself. I've been there myself. I still go through it now. Most mornings with me, I don't go right. I do have a little bit of a hissy fit trying to get it into place. But it's one of them. It's all down to confidence and just trying to bring it back.
It's part of the outfit, isn't it?
It is.
You know, like you put a suit on, you have the comb over, it looks nice. You know, you put a leather jacket on, it's the slick back. When it don't look right, it feels like you've put all the effort into what you're wearing, and now it's ruined because that won't go. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's one of them, innit? It's that frustration. Exactly.
It sets the tone for the day, doesn't
100%.
it? It sets the tone for the day. When you leave your house, you do your checks and that, and if it's not right, you've started off poor. If it looks right, you've got spring in your step. Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
It's like I say, it's like your hair's your crown because you're a king. Do you know what I mean?
I like that phrase.
It's true.
Yeah,
though.
no.
Your hair's your confidence, and it's true.
Definitely, and I think if you look at the actual, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you're going to do is head straight to a mirror, to clean, to brush your teeth, and to do your hair. And obviously the stress, one of the things, so when my corner started to go a little bit, and obviously I'm on the PRP at the moment, and use the dense products as well to make sure that the prevention is there. But when I felt quite out of control of it, it was just so frustrating, because the first thing in the morning I'm trying to sort my hair out and trying to make it look a certain way, or I need it in this certain style, and I wish my hairline was just a bit straighter here. And that stress straight away in the morning, it's not the best way to start the day, obviously. And the one thing about mental health is, we know it's so easy to get caught up in negative cycles. And if you begin your day with that negative thought, or that kind of where you're conscious about your body image straight away, it's going to have a massive impact on how the rest of your day goes. But then you have to think at the end of the day, what do? You're doing exactly the same, you're getting ready for bed, and it's the last thing you see. So I think that's why the impact of it is so great and is so massive on the way that it can actually negatively affect the course of your day, and why kind of that taking control back, as we've all kind of mentioned, is important. What does a kind of a good hair or bad hair day mean for you? You've got quite a full head of hair, so obviously when you're having an amazing day, it's not just a good hair day.
Well, exactly.
An amazing hair day.
Because I'm fortunate to have thick hair at the moment. Bear in mind, my granddad and my dad are losing it quite a lot on the top. But because it's so thick, it can be changed in so many different ways. So, for example, if it's particularly long, then I might feel like it changes the persona of who I see in the mirror. So when I have a fresh, clean cut and it's looking sharp, I actually feel and I see myself as looking younger and sort of more more lean, more fitter, more handsome. That's how I see myself. And then as soon as that starts to sort of lose control, actually, just because I haven't had it cut, whether it's receding or not, it's just not being able to style it in the way that I want to see myself. I see myself as being maybe older, more sort of let loose. I'm actually looking not as well kept as I want to be, and I'm very much aware that that's how others might see me, and think, oh, this guy can't look after himself, or you know, all those kind of things sort of pop up in your head. So it's kind of like, it's more of like a personality kind of change. Yeah, it's so entwined in your identity. But that's also what's wonderful about hair as well, is that you can literally change who you are by just switching up your hairstyle. And I think having that power is really quite something.
Definitely. So I think if I look back at my life, I've had different hairstyles at like different phases when I was almost a different individual, and when I've been through different phases in life, whether they were a year or 3 years, I've actually changed my hairstyle as well along with that. But then I think one thing that I noticed as well was trying to regain control by kind of hiding the corners through certain areas or whatever. And I think that's a kind of a part of the process of losing hair or hair loss in some of the form as well. And it is, you do kind of feel you're losing your identity when you kind of have a lack of control over how your hair is to be shaped. I don't know if what your guys' experience.
Well, is anyone guilty of having shoulder length hair with a teenager? Anyone? No?
I'd like the I'd like the Justin Bieber. My mum was showing me some photos the other day from when I was like 14. I used to play guitar as well, so obviously you can see the synergies. But I used to have like the Justin Bieber cut, so it went about down to my ears. That was as far as it did. It was like shaped awful,
Oh, no,
terrible.
I'll do one better. Mine with a classic V-cut with blonde tipped highlights.
Nice.
I thought I would look-
I'm from that era.
I thought I looked amazing.
Yeah.
Straight V, blonde highlights. Yeah, I thought it looked brilliant.
But like a good hair day, it's almost like you've got your life together, innit? It's a small thing that makes you feel like you put together properly. Yeah. It's like something so small, but it has such a big impact.
And this is like one of the things that I talk about a lot in my work, with even like anxiety around that. Like when you feel overwhelmed and when you feel out of control, the first thing I tell people to do is, look, you need to regain action. How are you going to do that? Little actions like cleaning your bedroom, going for a walk, just doing something proactive where you can actually take control back, and you'll see that the effects after, you're going to feel less anxious, you're going to feel more in control, you're going to have built up that momentum to start making change, so you feel better and you can regain control over your headspace. Which kind of brings me on to a question of, for you guys especially, who've obviously had the transplant and whatnot and those sorts of things, what was it like for you guys in actually taking that step finally to be like, do you know what, I'm gonna take control here? Because I know from my own personal perspective of starting the Dentsu treatment products and obviously the PRP as well, I felt for, if you ask my mum, 4 or 5 years, from the time I was 18, I said, Mum, listen, see my corners now, man, I can't see anything. You're lying to me. I'm like, Mum, I'm telling you right now, I'm like, I can see it, I've been seeing it, and that's been the case, and now she doesn't let me speak to her about it because she just thinks I'm crazy. But it shows how, for 5 years, I've not let that conversation drop, and it used to get to the point where I used to be visibly distressed part of the time. I used to get really frustrated about it. And more recently, in starting the products and again, going to PRP and just even doing some research around why and some of the causes of, and some of the ways I can prevent it, that's gave me a lot of control and confidence. And now I'm like, yeah, I'll chat about it. I probably never would have had a conversation like this 2 years ago, sat on a bench speaking about it. So it shows, for me anyway, the personal power of actually speaking around this stuff. And I was a little bit anxious, I'm not gonna lie, when I said, come and join, I genuinely was. But that's another reason why I knew this was a conversation that needed to be had. But for you guys, what was the power of kind of taking back control, and how did that impact your lives, your mental health, and also you kind of, how you felt about identity is what we touched on today?
Yeah, I think for me, there was never a point where I felt like I had control of something. I just always felt like it was just part of getting older, that you just lost your hair. My dad lost his hair, he's shaved it off, and I remember at the end of medical school, you go on an elective, and I went to Africa, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to bother with my hair, and I whipped it off and I did a #1 all over. Nice. And I hated it. And then I let it grow again, and when it did grow back, I just thought, I've got to do something about this. And yeah, there was never any, I genuinely thought there was not really much I could do, so just explored avenues, started the medication, was then thinking about hair transplant, and it was only once the medication started working and then I had a hair transplant to restore my hairline that afterwards, that's when you realise, oh, this is what I've done. I've been able to do that, because you do just think that your hair loss is spiralling out of control and there's nothing you can do about it. And older people will tell you that, you know, what you're doing that for. Just go bald, just shave it off, because that's what they're used to, that's what people used to do. But actually there is stuff that you can do, and if you start these things early, you don't have to get to that point where you feel like you are losing control.
It was interesting what you said about how the moment that you kind of shaved your hair off was when you was in Africa. So mine was over COVID. I knew I had like 3 weeks where I wasn't seeing anyone in lockdown. I was like, do you know what, I've always wanted to see, maybe because my corners are going back a little bit, maybe it's going to look better. Whipped it off and I was like, no. It was a no, definite no. But it's interesting because I did it at the same point. I was like, I was uncomfortable to actually show kind of the shape of my hairline in a sense. And had to do that when I was in a space of my own. So it shows kind of the way that we actually view it. And I think also when we talk about kind of the older generations around it, we have so much more, or so many more societal pressures anyway. Obviously social media, there is that, as much as we're conscious of it, there is that kind of comparison element that comes into our lives on a daily basis that we're programmed with. And it is like body image. I think there was kind of 1 in 3 people in the UK feel overwhelmed by their body image, is kind of out of control by it, and it has an impact on their mental health. And the body image for us all is something that we've said is really important, and the hair plays a huge factor in that, one of the most important factors. So you know, it was interesting about that. What did it mean for you kind of regaining control or taking those steps towards?
Mine were kind of the same. We're from like a generation of men now that actually do take pride in their appearance, even though it can be a taboo subject sometimes. That you get the normal lad banter that say, oh, whip it off, or just have a shaved head, I don't know what you're mourning for. But some people do want to have hair and style it. So I'm in the process of my transplant and I'm 7 weeks into it now.
Nice.
So my confidence, as soon as I had that transplant, an hour off that table, not the table, the bed. God.
In the medieval ages, saw out of that.
Hour off the bed, my confidence just shot up straight away, knowing I could see the outline of my hair and think, my God, in about 5-6 months, I'm gonna have the hairline I've always wanted, instead of like the classic M shape. So looking here now at you guys, I'm jealous of your hairlines because you've got like amazing hair. I know Jamie, you've had one done in the past, and so have you, Dr. Jamie, as well. And I'm looking with like jealous hair, but I know in a couple of months, I'm gonna have hair exactly the same as you. 100%. So that's what I'm looking forward to. My confidence just literally shot up. My mum can see it, my partner can see it, everyone can see it were a good idea to have it done for myself anyway.
Definitely so. And with you on yours?
Yeah, so it's a similar background to Jamie, really. Where I used to work with a lot of older fellas, so they're from a generation where they don't care, they just rip it off, sort of thing, like you guys have said.
Alpha.
Yeah, oh, don't worry about that. It only gets its way anyway, you know what I mean? But like Jamie was saying, I didn't know that there were much that could be done. And for me, it was a slow thing, so it sort of crept up on me. And it was only when they started going, oh, yeah, that's starting to go now, that I started to think, oh God, is it? And then I looked at a picture from 5 years ago and it's like, oh, it is, it really is. So then we went down, obviously like Jamie, I went down the transplant road, and now I use Dents, you know. But the reason why I'm sat here, like you were saying, anxiety about sitting here, Dents, although it will bring it back and it will thicken up the hair that you've got, we want to see it as like a prevention treatment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If young guys get on this early enough, they'll never have to go through what we've gone through, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, the transplant's great. Would I rather have not had it? Damn right, I would rather not had it. I would have rather used this product to retain what I've already got and not experience the hair loss in the first place, you know? And like you say, it's a stigma. The older generation, they just want to take it off and that, but we are from a generation now where we use hair to express ourselves, you know, fashion and style, etc. And the majority of people I've met, like yourself, Bud, I've done loads of consultations with people, young lads, older fellas, you know, they want to keep it. They want to be able to style it and use it as part of their identity, as we say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And it's a really interesting one around kind of all of that kind of with the identity and how important it is, I think, definitely so. When you talk about prevention, if we look at the realm of mental health as well, it's exactly the same conversation. It's like we don't treat, well, the best way to treat a mental health crisis is to stop it from ever reaching that point.
Exactly.
It's exactly the same. Like, it's the same with cybersecurity. You don't pay for cybersecurity once you've been breached. You pay it because you don't want to get breached. And it's the same with this stuff. And where I'm at in my own journey was exactly that, at that point of kind of prevention, of making sure I'm putting the processes and systems in place and doing the right thing so that long term, again, I don't have the hair loss that I probably would have done without. So really, really important from that perspective. Anyway.
I think another thing to just pop in there, like a lot of people will be watching this and they'll be saying, well, you three guys, you've had transplants. Why are you using any other products? Just because we've had a transplant doesn't mean the rest of our hair's protected. You know what I mean? A recede can continue to happen. You know, you've got to protect what you've got. Simple as that.
It's all the maintenance. Basically, it's an MOT for your hair. You get your car MOT, why not get yourself MOT?
An MOT for your crown.
And it's like trying to switch the attitude from being like us reactive to proactive. Stop it now. You don't have to go down that road. You know, you can prevent it early. It gets soon enough.
What's interesting is that starts with the conversation that so many of us are actually afraid to have, and that was my thing, and kind of my first conversation around it, where I properly told someone who wasn't in my family, was with Ash and the guys and Mo, when I had a conversation around the work that I did and stuff and mental health. And that was the first time where I'd sat down, and it was only after that point where I said, you know what, let me put a bit of time into research. And then I did some research, and then I was like, spoke to the guys a little bit more, educated myself on it, what the different things were. I had a consultation, went in for a free one, amazing, sat me down, and I was like, right, sweet. I felt like a bit of a eureka moment. I was like, right, I could do something now. Sweet.
You feel that relief
Take control.
away, that you've actually gone and done something about it.
100%.
My situation is a bit different, where no one actually noticed mine. It was me first, obviously. Then it was my wife that noticed it, and then it was my barber. And when my barber said, oh, you are getting a bit thin from that, I thought, oh God, panic stations, you know what I mean, what do we do now? But yeah, after that consultation, I thought, well, at least I've done something about it. So even if it doesn't work and it falls out, at least I've done something, I've tried, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's prevention. That was the big thing for me. Getting on there early. Yeah. There's no point letting it all fall out and then everyone's like, oh, you're looking a bit thin there, sort of thing. So
definitely, and I think one thing that you mentioned was, why is this conversation not being had around males? Like, why is it that we don't actually speak around it in society? And you mentioned about how kind of the comment from your barber and stuff as well. And I was reading a few articles where kind of a barber had said to one of his clients, so this guy wrote an article about his experience, and he said how his barber had told him that he needs to get married soon, otherwise if he loses his hair, he's not going to get married. And like, it's like those sorts of comments within society that, again, they feel so just kind of off the cuff, and like, obviously he's not said it with intent to ever put that person down. But when you're carrying something or conscious of something that has such a big impact on your identity, on your confidence, on your mental health, like those comments are weighty. Do you know what I mean? They've got weight. They've got weight to them. They're not just a little off the cuff. Like, that's a big thing that person will probably stew over for a long time. And I think that is probably, if you agree, and give me some other ideas around why you think people don't speak about it within society. But I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons people refrain from conversation, is to basically not be a catalyst for comments like that, and the banter that to them can actually be quite.
Has anyone here experienced that kind of that banter, I suppose, being the target of?
Yeah, absolutely. Like before the transplant, you know, people would say, oh, hey, you know, let's go in that now, you know, one strong gust of wind and that's off you, you know. But they think they're making it, you know, and it is just a, you know, it's not there to hurt you. It's just a little passing joke. But when you're living with it day in, day out, words can hit hard, can't they? And I think the reason we don't talk about it is because, like, we're talking about that generation who say, oh, just whip it off, don't worry about it. That's the generation that's raised us. It's the same generation that said, man up, you know what I mean? And now we're in an era when everyone's talking about mental health. It's the thing to talk about now, but when we've grown up, it's on man up, get a grip, don't worry about it. And it's not the case anymore. And it's good that we're going in that direction now. You know, we mentioned the other day about Paddy Pimblett with his UFC fight, talking about mental health, talk to people, you know, get it out there. You know, like you were saying, when you met Ash, you know, I had consultation, you know, you think, well, at least I've opened the bottle now. I've got it out there and I've now got some options. But until you start talking about it, there's never going to be an option for you. You've got to speak about it.
Right, and this is why this conversation, I think, is extremely important, and it probably will be for a lot of people that are actually watching, because it'll be the first time where it's like just normal, open.
Yeah.
And it's even, I don't know about you guys, but it's strange for me to sit here over something I've been conscious of for a while and just chat. Yeah, exactly that. So it's nice, but just coming back to that, like the reasons why people don't speak in society. Jamie, do you have anything around that? What are the reasons you would think?
I was just thinking then that sort of hair loss happens really slowly. So, and initially it is just like maybe your temples, and it's really easy to hide it. And then you get into that habit of hiding it, and maybe that sort of brings that stigma in, is that you can cover it up initially, and it's something that you hide from other people. The only person that ever sees it is your barber when they wet your hair and slick it back and they're cutting it. And when you do go to your barber, you say, you know, can you cut my hair so that I can drag this bit forward, please? Because I need to cover that. So nobody else ever sees it, and you get away with hiding it for so long. That's maybe the reason why people become embarrassed.
Do you find yourself doing certain habits or behaving differently to try and hide it?
Definitely. I had one hairstyle all the time that used to just cover. It used to cover this side up, sweep that side down, and it would be sprayed with so much hairspray that it didn't move, because if I went outside and the wind blew it in one direction or the rain got you, it just split the sides, and then just constantly trying to cover it up, or looking in car mirrors, just making sure your temples are covered up. So I think we get into a habit of hiding it that much that then I don't know whether that negatively impacts us, that we don't speak about it.
It's almost like a weird thing built into men, isn't it? It's like when you get poorly, you think, no, I'll be right, I'm not going to doctor, I'm not going to... They go when it gets really bad, you know what I mean? Yeah. You think if I just would have gone sooner, would have given me some paracetamol and something like that, and I'd been right, but now I'm on antibiotics because I've made myself worse, you know what I mean?
Tell me about it. I've had back issues for 6 months, I've still not seen a doctor. I'm sat here like changing my posture every 5 minutes because of it, and I still haven't seen a doctor, but it's true, and it is that kind of, I feel obviously the stigmas around kind of being alpha and whatnot in society, and it is, I think that is probably one of the underlying factors of why a lot of males don't speak, is because of that.
It's like a sign of not wanting to show weakness, isn't it? Because by talking to someone about it, you're admitting your flaws, aren't you? You're like saying, I am a flawed person, and yeah, I want to change something.
Men are allowed to admit that they are a little bit sensitive when it comes to it, because obviously 100%. There's the lad banter and stuff like that, and they're laughing off and have a joke about it, but inside you think, crap, that hurt, that.
What about knowledge then, in terms of like, actually what point did you guys realise that there was something that could be done?
Literally, I saw it with George Sampson. So he had a transplant and he ended up on telly, and it was literally just by chance of being sat there having my breakfast one day, and he were on Good Morning Britain talking about it. And by him, about having the transplant, because he would talk about breakdancing all these years spinning on my head. It created the issue.
Fair enough.
But that was just by chance. But by him having that conversation, it then opened the door for me, and hopefully, like, from us having this conversation, it'll open the door for someone else that'll keep moving forward. So transplants is something that I know about from that. But like this stuff with dents, you know, people. The stigma that we're going to have to try and break down now is that in the past there's been a lot of snake oils. You know, people making false promises, and now we know that the product works. You know what I mean? And it's something that should be used, and you know it does work. But it's going to be breaking down those barriers now.
And it's how do you get people to take the action of actually using product or making the action to create change? Because even things like the conversation, the consultation, like I was a bit anxious in it. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm sat there, I'm like, it's uncomfortable because we've never spoken about it. So I think one of the most important factors in helping people create change for themselves is conversation. It is like the education, it is normalising the conversation, because once it becomes normal, like I know in my process, well, when my process started of taking control was after a conversation. It was after I took like education. Same with you saw someone else speak about it and you were like, right, cool, I've seen someone else is going through it, but I've also seen him talk about these things. Let me just dip my toe in the water and see what can come from it. And then that's a catalyst for then regaining control, whether that's through PRP, a transplant, the products, the very nice gummies, the rest of it. Really, really important. And talking about kind of generationally as well, because you mentioned about your family. What was the impact of your family actually losing their hair had on you, being someone who isn't losing hair, who has a very full head of hair, who is again able to style it in many different ways, like you said? Like, has that had an impact on the way you live, the way you think? Have you been more conscious around you when you're older, and how has that had an impact on you?
I mean, to be honest with you, it's not really like come up as an issue. It's just kind of like that's what happens, right? It's
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of,
of course, yeah.
it's never even occurred to me only until getting involved with you guys and sort of the Dents brand. Actually, that doesn't have to be that way. It's just kind of once you hit a certain age, that kind of starts to happen. You start to, you know, lose your hair, go have the sort of the monk look, basically, as in my family, and that's kind of it. You deal with that, and that is life, right? So it's a hard one to say, really, but I think, but this is for me where the kind of the educational part actually I think is really interesting, because you guys have experienced it so acutely. You're in that world. But for people who are more on the periphery, like myself, actually is a very dark world in terms of what hair loss is all about. And I feel like that we need to just, a part of what this is all about is just talking about it more, to actually let people know that, you know, even if you don't have to have an extreme case in order to just give yourself a little bit of help, a little bit of, you know, just get to where you want to be, rather than it being a big serious case of you know, hair loss.
Do you think age, in terms of where you're at or we're at in terms of our own ages, has an impact on the importance of retaining hair, for example? Because you mentioned there, like, it's just a natural thing when you get older, which again, 50% of people do lose their hair by 50. That's a common fact, it's just a statistic. Would you have been as bothered if it was 45 when you started losing your hair, or 50 or 55?
I think no matter what age you are, it's still stigma around it. And like I said, people are too scared or they're too shy to talk about it. So it doesn't matter what age people have it done. You've got people that are in the 70s that'll have it done, or in the 60s that'll have it done. But like you say, it's all about the prevention, that it is the cure. Obviously, start on the Dents products and then go for a transplant if you want that confidence to restore your hairline. But I know people that are I see people being a patient care coordinator. I see people that come and talk to me of all different ages that want to know, that need the education, and see what the best options are for them.
It's interesting for you because you've been there yourself, being the consultant patient. Is that the title?
Yeah.
So you'll see people from moment of consultation to 10 months, 12 months down the line. Talk to me about it.
Well, the best feeling for me is when you get some young lad coming in and he's like 21, he's starting to lose it, and he's gone on a transplant, you know what I mean? He's like, I'm putting the money down, I want the transplant. And you say, well, slow down a second. Let's try this. There might be an option. And you restore it without having to go down that road, and seeing how thankful and grateful they are. But also educating them so they can pass it on to their friends, you know what I mean? Who might not be like him, like we're saying about people who keep it bottled up, who don't talk about it. Because he could then go to his mates and say, oh, I found this great product and I'd have to have a transplant. And he could be one of those lads who's cut his hair into place and ironed it, but now he's got an option, you know what I mean? And that's the best feeling, when you actually stop someone jumping all the way in and you say, pull it back a second, there might be options before that, you know what I mean? That's the best feeling.
I definitely echo what you've said. Is there's like a bunch of young people who probably have started noticing their hair loss, and the only thing they know to treat it is, I get a hair transplant.
I'm going to Turkey. That's the instant thing, innit? I'm going to Turkey, I'm booking it. I'm off, slow down.
It's a lovely hotel.
Yeah. They're going to pick me up from airport and everything. It's going to be brilliant.
But then it's a plane ride home where you've all got shaved heads.
A bandage and a swollen head on
spot
top
the
of it.
bandage.
Yeah.
For you guys, again, in that position, what do you see in terms of difference from the individual when it's like day one where they come into the consultation and they're down, they're probably not looking at you in the eye? Like, what's that consultation like compared to 12 months in, when they've had, let's say, something like a transplant at the end, or if it's been PRP 6 months in or whatever?
Initially for me, when you first do the consultation and you always talk to them about prevention is always better than the cure, so you always offer them the best outcome for them. So I could necessarily turn around and say, you don't need the transplant, we'll get it back with PRP, use the Dents product, and we'll restore your hair back to its normal density. A lot of people appreciate that because they think, oh, I'm not blowing thousands and thousands of pounds. It's a cheaper way, my hairline's going to be fine, and they can get it back a cheaper way. So they are pretty grateful in that sense.
What about the individual though? So I'm saying that from no, it's fine. But so that's that initial consultation as well, like you said, and they come in and they're very grateful for that sort of advice. Once they've gone through that process, what's the difference between guy who walks in on day one for consultation to 6 months down the line or 12 months down the line when he's had a transplant or whatever? What do you typically see? It's
night and day. He's a literal different person. You'll see him come in, they're very in the shell, very slouched over and chat, and then they come back and they're new people. Like Ash did my consultation, you know, and I was that sort of person. Look at me now, I'm sat here with you guys. So, there's not a chance on this earth I'd be sat here in front of cameras talking about this. I'd be like, nope, not doing that, I'm away.
And that's so interesting because that's like everything that you've spoken about there, loss of eye contact, body language very crouched, very obviously like, kind of over, hunched over, probably, I know what I'm talking about. Probably in terms of their language, are they that engaged in conversation? How is it typically with individuals?
Very defeated.
Yeah.
I've had one guy and his hair was thinning out and he was using the fibres, which are a great way to, it's like putting a plaster over it basically. It's a good way to cover it up for the time being, but it was affecting his love life because he'd arranged to go on dates and then we're in England, it'd be raining and he couldn't go outside because the rain had run down his face. So I mean, such an impact that way, you know what I mean? But like, obviously we've got solutions here, you know what I mean? And to educate them on that and then restore them, and then 12 months down the line, the fibres are in the bin, they've got all their hair back to the natural density. It's amazing. They're just a different person. And
you have to think about the impact on when we're talking about how they live their actual life. So dating, I know one of my anxieties around it was like, like I said, same with that marriage comment, it's like, bloody hell, maybe if this gets to a point, am I going to be attractive to people? Am I going to be able to date? Am I going to have to come off the date? Not that I was dating too much, I got lovely misses at the moment. But it's one of those, it's a worry. Like even with that, sometimes I'm like, if it did go, I'm losing a job. I mean, it's one of those things that comes into your mind 100%. It's one of those little anxious worries that we all get from time to time. And it's interesting because, again, that person who's in the consultation for that first time, imagine how they're living in society when everyone they come into contact with, they can't look at in the eye, the body language is shrouded, they don't want to really engage with conversation. Have you ever experienced kind of wanting to stay in the house or not go outside at all from your perspective? Or
luckily, for me, we're never to the point where I'd hide away, but at meeting people, I've had people that can't go to social events, can't go to their friends' weddings because they can't wear a cap, they can't put a three-piece suit on and a baseball cap to hide it. Like yeah, 100%. The people we've spoken to, the impact that it has on day-to-day life is insane, you know what I mean? They'll spend hours like getting the barber to cut their hair down this side so they can comb it over, do the bobby chalk, hairspray it into place. It's like a 2-hour ritual to get it done, you know, and then all it takes is one person come on, ruins their day. It devastates them, you know what I mean? And it has such an impact.
So I think one of my impacts where I remember saying that hairstyle, I used to have that when I was younger, and I remember driving one day and I just happened to put the window down, and obviously my fringe was to one side, this is ridiculous, but in the wind my fringe started flapping and you could see it in the mirror, and I just thought every so often, I just looked and I thought, no, I'm covering it, why am I covering it? And then that's before I started working for Javida Clinics. I were already looking into transplants then, because that's one thing that triggered me. I was growing it to one side, getting a haircut, like you say, sweeping it over, but it was just that flapping in the wind that I just saw, and that's what triggered me.
And I think it comes back to what you said about mental health, like men would rather hide it than talk about it.
Yeah, it's the same. Do you think that any of the hair loss for you guys has been linked to stress? I know probably with me, I've had a bit of a stressful life at times, that's why I'm a mental health public speaker. But I know that's probably been a catalyst in my own journey as well. So do you also, as well as the preventative side with, and obviously everything you've got now with the transplant and the sprays and medication, same with myself, with that sort of thing, do you do anything, or are you conscious of how you actually live your life, or around kind of hair loss, and maybe for the guys as well over on that side, so Izzy, and do you feel like the way you live your life has an impact on your hair now? You've obviously experienced a little bit. Are you more conscious of, okay, I need to be less stressed and work on my mental health and make sure those things are in place? Or
definitely, yeah, of course. I mean, it's clearly linked, isn't it? Stress and hair loss, it has to be. Yeah. So yeah, you do. I think, like I said, once you've gone through the initial loss, you'll do anything for that never to happen again. So it does change your mindset, changes the way you approach things and everything. Definitely, feel like a new person, because you just don't want to lose it. That crown thing was actually a really good analogy. Honestly,
trademark.
Oh, honestly, no, you don't. No, it is. You definitely look to just a different perspective on life. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know what I'd do if it completely went. So yeah, no, it definitely changes you as a person for the better. Of course, it does.
Like even your lifestyle, do you find like you do something like you drink more water, you know, all these little things that try and keep your stress levels as low as possible, you know, and there are a lot of factors that come into it, you know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah.
Definitely, I think that's one thing. But I don't know if did you feel like your hair loss was triggered by stressful events or a period of stress in your life, or?
I don't think so, but I would say that losing my hair, it made me more stressed. So stressful situation. Even simple things like when you're on holiday and you come out of swimming pool and you're just thinking like, what's on show, what can people see, or you're trying to like judge it up a little bit to cover things up. So I think losing my hair caused me stress. I'm not really sure that there was anything stressful going on in my life.
It's like a vicious cycle almost. You don't want to get stressed because you don't want your hair to fall out, but then because your hair's falling out, you're getting stressed. It'll look out of wind.
It feeds into it. And I think like obviously a lot of people will be going through it now because we're off the back of COVID. That's why this chat is probably so important now. Hopefully a lot of lads will see this.
Well, I think a lot of people underestimate the physical impact of stress actually has on us as well until it actually happens. So even from my example would be I had a period of stress back in 2019 and that caused me to have vitiligo, so hence why I've got a white patch on my chin. And that also makes me realise, well, what else can it do to your body, right? If that's something that's just happens to be in a very obvious place, you know, what else is it doing in your body, to your head, to your, you know, to all parts of yourself? And it does make you think, once you have those little indicators happen, you know, we've got to get on top of that stress, man. Otherwise,
what's the knock-on effect of it?
What's it doing in your body?
Yeah.
It's true, even like on a kind of a smaller scale of when you're anxious, you feel sick. You can feel it in your body, you genuinely feel it physically. Like those things are there, stress is genuinely there in the body. Like affect your dietary habits, raise your blood pressure, you get a red face. I know when I'm stressed or if I'm anxious, my whole face will go red and I know my blood pressure's raised and I'm like, Dan, you need to chill out, go for a walk or something and put those kind of systems in place. But again, it is huge, and you mentioned about post-pandemic, there has been an increase in hair loss in both females and men since the pandemic. And obviously the reason for that is because we've all shared an extremely stressful and damaging in many ways experience that has come on in light of the pandemic. But like you said, I think there's some conversation has happened at probably the best time for that, because we've both had kind of the increase of public awareness around mental health, and this is something that is now on the increase as well because of the pandemic. So this conversation obviously is extremely important. I kind of want to move on to kind of what people can actually do. Like we've talked about action and the importance of taking action. What action would we actually recommend to someone who is struggling with the hair loss or is thinking about taking action?
I think that's something that I want to ask you guys then, I suppose, having had a lot of experience with hair loss. For someone who is pretty much coming into hair loss with very little knowledge about it, or where do you even start? Like what are the different ways you can kind of tackle it, especially from someone that is not that far on yet?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of different options. You know, in the industry right now, a lot of men just think, you know, you've got the transplants. Then another option is like a treatment that we call PRP, which is platelet-rich plasma. This is when we take blood from your blood supply, obviously, and then we spin it and create the plasma. It's like regenerative, so what we do then, we inject that into your scalp, and that can regenerate it. But then, obviously, we want to start off with prevention products. So for yourself, the beauty of Dent is you don't even have to go and see anyone. You can go on the website, you do a questionnaire, it's like a consultation for yourself, fill all the details, then it recommends the products for you. So depending on what stage of hair loss you're experiencing, and obviously you're not even there yet, you're just in a preventative state, it's going to recommend what products would suit you best. And I think the best thing about it is the fact that it's got such a broad spectrum of products. You know, like it's not just one size fits all. You know, we've got the pharmaceutical side of stuff. You know, if you're over 18 and you're experiencing hair loss, this might be good for you. But obviously there'll be a lot of young school kids looking at this and thinking, well, what can I do? You know, and we've got a full herbal range as well, you know. And there are natural herbal extracts out there that can stop DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which affects hair loss. So that range is available. So it's really discreet. It gets sent to your house in, you know, in in a little box, private, and it's like a monthly subscription, which is brilliant.
Well, one of the concerns I have, and I know a lot of other people will, is, well, what are these old wives' tales, and kind of, I feel like there's a lot of scepticism around, do these sort of products work? And, you know, what is it? Should someone who's really early on, what should they be doing? What should they be doing? What should they be taking? Should they be taking anything at all when, you know, they've not necessarily been experiencing hair loss yet?
Yeah, so the biggest issue, like the main treatment out for hair loss to block DHT is finasteride. Now, most commonly it appears in a tablet form, and I'm sure some of us here have experienced it. The issue with taking the tablet version of finasteride is it creates a plethora of side effects, and I've experienced it myself, and it can be anything from mood, you can feel down, depressed, it can affect sexual function, it can all sorts of trouble. And it scares people, you know what I mean? So they think, well, there is a solution, but there's no way that I'm taking that because it's going to have such a negative impact on the rest of my life that it's just not worth it. So with Dents, we've got a topical version. So you literally just apply the product, it just attacks the DHT at the source, it stops the receptor that creates it, and you go about your day.
You keep using DHT.
DHT is dihydrotestosterone, so it's basically testosterone converts into dihydrotestosterone, which effectively blocks the blood supply to the root of the follicle. So if you imagine your hair follicles are almost like a flower, and the blood supply is obviously the water that feeds them and brings nutrients there, the DHT blocks it. So when you're losing your hair, the analogy that I always tell people is like, it's like a flower wilting away, you know what I mean? If you get in there with this product and apply it, obviously it's going to kill the DHT, the nutrients will get there with the blood supply, and your hair will thicken back up.
I think one of the things from my own personal perspective when we're talking about, okay, like advice that we're offering and how would someone take action, and even amongst all the side effects and so on and so forth, like when on the Dents website, literally logging in and that process being so easy, when we talk about men not feeling comfortable talking about this thing, that is a process that is so seamless and easy that there is that psychological safety behind it, because I didn't have to tell my missus, I didn't have to tell anyone, the thing is delivered to me and literally to my door. So the whole process of it being reviewed by doctors and all that, there's so much safety in how I felt in terms of my own comfort in the process, and that's what made it, well, gave me a lot more confidence in actually getting the product. But I think from my own perspective of taking back that control, there's nothing that's been more important than me to start that day and then to be like, cool, do you know what, sweet, I'm doing something about it every morning, and just having that top up there. But there are other side effects as well, and you guys will know from know about some of those from hair transplants. I know with me, when I had PRP, I was like 6 weeks in and my hair was shedded, and I was like, scary, because it's one of those things. I'm trying to take a kind of a preventative method to prevent hair loss, but my hair's coming out a bit more than it usually was, and that was really, really scary for me. But the number one thing that I did, again, is conversation. I had a conversation with, like, a consultation, and I was like, okay, I did some research, it's a natural part of the process, and it's actually a really good sign. So then straight away, my anxieties, my worries were put to bed. So there are obviously side effects with things. I don't know if there are any of those from the transplant, or were there specific side effects you'd heard about that were like really scary for you?
Shock loss is a common side effect with hair transplant. So people have a hair transplant and can experience some shock loss from the natural trauma of it, and some of your hair that was thicker can fall out when you have a hair transplant, but it tends to grow back, so it's all temporary, and it's the same thing when you start taking medications for hair loss. So when you first start taking things like finasteride or minoxidil, which are both in the spray of Dents, you can go through an initial stage where you think, oh, my hair's falling out even more now, and it's really important at that point to continue with the product. So don't stop it. Have a chat with someone about it, but that is a normal part of the process, and the reason that happens is because your hair that is thinning, those hairs are on the road to nowhere, so they'll get thinner and thinner and thinner, and that hair follicle will eventually die. When you start taking preventative medicines, what that does is that resets that hair follicle cycle, so it lets go of that thin hair, and then it's going to start producing a thick hair again. So initially, when you start to notice some hair loss, it's completely normal. It might get a bit thinner, and then around sort of 2 to 3 months in, you'll be on the upwards trajectory then, and you should then start to see thicker hair coming through.
Yeah, it's definitely something I saw even with the Dents products as well, was that there was that kind of period. Obviously I had the PRP and the Dents products, and there was that period that was quite worrying, but obviously now the growth that's come through, again, I've come from that 8-week side now. And what would you say has been different about Dents for you guys, and why do you really enjoy using Dents? Obviously we have the process that we've talked about, we've spoken about the actual results foundationally, which are amazing, which we've all seen. I know one thing for me is obviously how natural the products are, from the gummies, from the shampoos, how in terms of the ingredients, there's not many chemicals. I think it's 97% natural drive in the shampoos, for example. That's a really important thing for me, because I know that, especially when there's hair loss going, I don't want to put more chemicals on there. But for you guys, why do you enjoy using the products, and what is it that you get out of it?
It's so simple. You don't have to break your routine. Everything just fits in. You're not doing anything out of the ordinary. Do you know what I mean? So you're using shampoos. You use shampoo anyway, don't you? The hair care products, the wax, the sprays. So there's nothing you're doing that's like, oh, I've got to wake up extra early to do this, or that seems a bit weird. It's all just normal and natural, something you do anyway.
So Jamie, obviously we were talking before we started filming, and you mentioned how you'd actually used tablets before, Finish Right tablets, and now obviously use the spray. Really interested from you to get an understanding of what's been the difference, and what have you preferred, what's been the benefits, and just around all of that, like how have you seen the difference?
Yeah, so obviously, like we were saying earlier, the main one is the side effects. It reduces the risk of all the horrible side effects that you get from taking finasteride in its tablet form. But not only that, the way the product's designed, you can't tell the difference between the pharmaceutical spray and the styling products that we've got. So you can chuck it in your wash bag. Right. You know, if you go away with your partner or anyone, you know, you open your wash bag, there's tablets there. Oh, what's that? You know, it's a taboo thing, whereas it's in a spray, you don't get questioned, which is another good thing. But yeah, it's one of the best things about it. But also, using the spray, if you're like an athlete, it's going to stop anything flagging up in your blood work or anything like that. You know, you're going to reduce the risk of anything going wrong because you're not putting a foreign body into yours, you know what I mean?
Right, so in terms of athletes that were using tablets before, when it came to the doping, for example, that was actually coming up on the test, was it?
Yeah, it could be an issue for people. It could be an issue for people in certain sports, but by doing so, by using the spray, you're reducing that risk, you know what I mean?
Yeah, wonderful. One stat that also stood out to me, which I read recently, was that 25% of under 21-year-olds actually suffer with hair loss, which was something that just blew my mind a little bit, that it was such a high number. What would you recommend for someone who is at that age, who is maybe not even started suffering with hair loss? What would you recommend to them, knowing that statistic, and what would be the process from there?
Like I said, again, the best thing about Dents is there's a plethora of products for different cases, different where you are in your stages of hair loss. For young people, there's herbal remedies that block the DHT production. So start off small, start using them. You know, you're going to be using styling products anyway. You may as well be using something that's going to benefit your hair. And then if you need to further down the line move on to the pharmaceutical side of it when you're 18 and above, then you can do so. But the products that we've got in the styling range are going to prevent it anyway.
Matt, for you as someone who obviously with the products, isn't suffering from hair loss, do you think you would be the sort of person that would use the Dents product, the styling range, for example?
Well, what I'd find concerning about going into looking at hair loss prevention is not wanting to take any sort of tablets or something that I just don't necessarily need, that might actually do more damage than benefit at the stage that I'm at. So it sounds quite interesting about the idea of having styling products actually that don't necessarily interfere with what's going on inside my body and actually applies to the top. So tell me more about that, I suppose.
So there's herbal treatments in there, so like saw palmetto, trichotin veg. These are natural DHT blockers. So you're going to use the shampoo, you're going to impact it. You're going to put your styling wax in. You're literally going to be walking around with your hair styled, and you're going to be preventing hair loss, which is something that isn't available in any other product. You know, you go down to body care, you get your cheap waxes and stuff like that. They're not benefiting your hair, whereas this stuff is going to actually protect it.
Yeah. Well, if you're buying that products, you know, waxes and shampoos and stuff anyway, it makes sense just to switch and just
the great products
make
as well.
sure you're covered.
It's not a case of like the half decent wax, but it's doing it's good products. Like there's something you'd buy from the store anyway. Do you know what I mean? The shampoos smell amazing. The
wax smells amazing.
Honestly, it smells amazing. But it's the quality of the actual wax. So even if it didn't have the hair growth elements in there or prevention in there, you'd buy it anyway because they're that good. You know what I mean? So
I think what's kind of coming out from that is it's like a spectrum, and everyone is on that spectrum at some point. Whether you're not losing at this end, or whether you're at the end of having transplant, or lost all your hair, those sorts of things. There is kind of remedies for the whole thing, and it's about knowing where you are and what to use in that. And I know if I probably wasn't actually experiencing any hair loss, but maybe it had been in the family, hereditary and whatnot, or I'd seen people around me, like the actual act of using wax that was boosting my hair, or just making it healthier, or just me wanting to have healthier hair through using a solution like that, I think would give me a lot of confidence at the time. In hindsight, maybe it'd have been nicer if you made the products 5 years earlier. Possibly so, that could have been great. But again, I can imagine the confidence that would actually give to someone who is just wanting to boost their hair. But I think the great thing about it is obviously that range does cover and accommodate for people, and it meets them where they are at their journeys, what's kind of standing out to me. And it's interesting because we're all at kind of those different points on the journey, and we've all been able to take back control and had that positive impact on all the areas that we kind of mentioned previously.
Yeah, and again, Dents have taken all the guesswork out of it. So literally you just go to the website, you fill out your details, where you are in your journey, and the products get recommended to you. It takes all the guesswork out of it. You don't even have to fumble through it and find them.
So I suppose that brings us possibly onto our final question of, do you think, head over to this side, do you think that we should accept hair loss within society as males?
Definitely not, no. So, as a doctor, you'd never say that about anything else. You know, if somebody says to you, oh, you're overweight, you're getting diabetes, you're having high blood pressure, you would never accept it. There's always something to do about it. If there's something to do about it, then you should do something about it. And I think over the years, there's been a lot of research into hair loss products. There are proven things that work, so finasteride, minoxidil, scientifically proven to either reverse hair loss or get those hair follicles to regrow again. So why sit back and sort of let your hair fall out or get to the point where you might need a hair transplant if you can do something about it, which is as simple as spraying some stuff on your hair, styling it and going about your day. Yeah, definitely not.
Does anyone have an opposing view to that? Sat on the table. Everyone's like, no, I'm the same. I think, I think definitely so. If there's something that you can do about it, then start the process and take back that control, because the implications on what we've said, body image, mental health, relationships, like these are such big factors of our life, and to lose control over that is as we know, it's a very scary process. People have been in it, have been worried about it, conscious of it. And we know firsthand the impact that it's kind of had. So to take back that control, I think, yeah, everyone should have the power to do so. And again, it is choice. But it's amazing that we actually are in a position to be able to take the choice to do that. Does anyone have anything else to add to the conversation?
Just, you are literally on this planet once. If something is bothering you and you've got the power to do something about it, get it done.
100%.
Just do it.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's always nice to sort of see people at different points of the journey of hair loss. People who have never experienced hair loss, but in the back of the head are wondering, is it going to happen to me? Because it's happened to my dad and my granddad. To the other end of the spectrum of, I've been through it all, and I've used products and had hair transplants and have come out the other side. And then to Nick, who sort of is just at the start of that journey and is so excited to see what his results would happen. And I think my take-home message for everyone would be that the time to start these products is when you first start noticing hair loss, because there's no point holding out. As a hair transplant surgeon, I would say the minute you start noticing your hair, you need to start some form of finasteride and minoxidil, which is both in one product with the Dents. Don't wait. The only option is not a hair transplant. You don't have to wait to get to that point. There's something to do about it when you first start noticing it.
It's just really important to have these kind of conversations, actually. And from what I understand, Dents is actively trying to bring people together with, doesn't matter what stage of hair loss you're at, if you have it at all, just to be open about it and try and remove that stigma, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is just really beneficial in many ways, and I'm hoping people get a lot of empowerment from just a small little discussion like this.
It's interesting because we've all been at different stages of it, haven't we?
Yeah.
Like some not so much, you not all, some like, do you know what I mean? It's just, it's never too late.
Yeah.
And that's the message, isn't it? It's never too late to actually do something about it.
It's great to be sat with that like and think you've got some options now, you know, because it must be stressful having a head of hair like that and seeing your dad and your granddad and thinking, it's coming. You've got options now. You don't have to go down that road, which is great.
And that's the amazing thing about that conversation, isn't it? Because if someone on the outside, regardless of what stage they're at, they're going to take something from this, which is like, that's an amazing foundation to build a conversation on, knowing that people are going to come away from this and just feel, do you know what? I can do something about it. I've heard people in the same position of me. I feel more courageous. Maybe I can take that step that I've been thinking about for 3 years and haven't done anything about. And that for me is enough if we get nothing else from today's conversation. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, an amazing experience, a brilliant conversation. I hope we have more of them. There's definitely more of them coming on the Dents Locker Room Chat, 100%, and keep your eyes peeled for them. And of course, take yourself over to the website. If you are someone who's thinking about maybe just taking that first step, have a look, educate yourself, take some things from this conversation, move yourself forward, and yeah, action, prevention is the key.